What does it really mean? Healing. What does that really mean? Well, any number of things simultaneously. It's not always sunshine and roses. It's not always something terrific. It can be a very enlightening process, and well, here's the thing about enlightenment. There's a lot of glossy PR out there about that particular topic. But there's a quote I came across some time ago that said something to the effect of, enlightenment is the crumbling away of untruth. Yeah. That can be an unpleasant experience, to say the least. Especially when there's significant drama involved. Most people don't even have any idea how traumatized they really are. They might even think that they're doing all right. So more often than not, it's not until shit really hits the fan. Until someone might begin re-examining some things. If they even do at that point. It usually takes shit hitting the fan and perhaps tumbling to rock bottom and getting dragged along the abyss, if you will, for some time, while clinging to all the prior illusions. It's not great. The desperate search for cures for what ails you, seeking out professionals, so-called experts, again and again. Perhaps one might find something like a Band-Aid to patch things up for a little while, and we'll cling to that for as long as possible to get along with the day-to-day until it just doesn't work anymore. One might begin having to push themselves to be somewhat of their own doctor in a sense, much like in a sense like the kind of Hippocrates stated in his time, which was anyone who is not their own doctor is a fool. And it's kind of essential, especially this day and age. I guess it kind of maybe always has been, but especially now. It's not to say to discard the opinions of professionals, but it is to say that not all professionals are so great. In fact, far from it. There's somewhat of a renegade therapist fellow who I mentioned in another video, Daniel Mackler. In his time as a patient, client, and also as a therapist, he noticed a very strange phenomenon. What happens when the client is actually healthier than the therapist? So? Surely this cannot be. Unfortunately, it can, and happens quite often. Let's say the client is in what's somewhat of a growth mindset, and they've already made some strides. Well, the therapists, by their modalities and training, and having not utilized these things to address their own problems in their own life, their own developmental shortcomings, and traumas, well, you tend to get, as he called it, somewhat of a reaction from the therapist where the underlying message, the fine print and everything else that they're pushing upon you really is, and that is, how dare you question my arrogance? It's not to say you're being conflictoratory or anything like this, and probably not. But you might be challenging them because you have some sense of what works and what doesn't. And essentially what they're kind of prescribing, and it's just all too common in cognitive behavioral therapy models, and, well, perhaps underqualified, realistically underqualified therapists out there. And that is to encourage one to just stuff everything down that they're trying to learn how to process so they can just shove themselves back into whatever mold they never fit in to begin with. This is kind of a problem. Toxic therapy. It's very much a problem. It's a big problem. It's a big deal. This can be a part of the healing journey. And it is, it's alarming and disheartening And it can seem very conspiratorial when you're going through it, much like being embroiled within some kind of narcissistic family system or anything to that accord, any extension of it, or anything that can happen like that later in life as a byproduct of coming up in a narcissistic family system and having not done the family of origin work and shadow work and everything else like this. It takes challenging oneself and looking within to the uncomfortable things, the dark things, and with a little bit of trial and error, learning how to do so responsibly so you don't fucking re-traumatize yourself over and over. I would really recommend some videos from the Young to Live By folks when it comes to that stuff. They've got a very balanced approach and understanding, and what do you know, it's an effective therapeutic modality. Unfortunately, there's not many practitioners of this sort of thing out there, and some of us are of the opinion that there's a bit more that's needed, along with some more innovation. Because you have this other unusual phenomena, because it's as if, and again, this is another observation by Daniel Mackler and many others, as if family of origin trauma is the norm. Well, how can this be? We've got a video on that, if anybody would like to take a look at it. I believe it is called Welcome to Unconventional Town, the mystery of mass intergenerational trauma. Look over a few ideas there. Essentially what it culminates to is what to do about that. And it's there is a pushback from these broken systems. They don't seem to like self-awareness on these deeper levels. They are very invested in pushing back against it, and it can be challenging. And thus, this is an incentive to stay in it. It's for some, damn well near at any cost. And it's a shame. But there are those of us who simply cannot be acquiescing anymore to any of that stuff, no matter what. And doing so as carefully as we can, but, it can be problematic. Now, the flip side is going through these healing journeys is not always sunshine and rainbows. But what you can obtain from doing so it's almost indescribable based on any lenses that are still heavily invested in more traditional positions of perception. I'm not even sure if this kind of thing can really be incentivized to anyone who isn't already up to snuff. And I'm not really sure what separates those of us who have to proceed no matter what to those who have found some aberrant necrotic homeostasis within these noxious systems. In spite of all the underlying pain, suffering, and misery that they cause, but seems to be something. What does it mean to heal? Again, any number of things, and often simultaneously. Sometimes it could be the surgical removal, if you will, of very toxic people from your life. But first and foremost, one has got to begin getting real with how they feel. This is getting in touch with one's core self. Beyond that, something that I would liken to a form of an organic technology, if you will. It's really something to, and maturing your emotional empathic and intuitive data processing faculties, essentially. One incentive of many is, this can act as a gateway to any number of things that a person wishes to have. Certain traits and abilities and things like this, or motivation. And oftentimes people are not motivated because they're living as a construct, artificial carbon copy version of their authentic selves, which are woefully underdeveloped and stuck, suppressed, stuffed down. You've got to mount something of a rescue mission to get them out of there. And you got to learn how. You can't just do it. You got to learn how. There's information out there, thank fucking God. And, the channel is still relatively new around here, and, frankly, it might be a little bit too unconventional for most people. I'm not sure, but if anything ever like that changes, and if anybody would like to know anything more particular and some recommendations, well, leave your commentary in the commentarium below, and we'll get something going. Apart from that, I think that is about it for this one. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time. Wouldn't you know it, there's one more thing, actually. When it comes down to what does healing really mean? Well, in essence, one of the many things that it means is intuiting your own path, developmental path, putting your own pieces of the puzzle together with resonant data packets, and learning how to cultivate the discernment, the distinction, to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. And it's quite something to begin to enable oneself to do that. All right. Thanks for tuning in again, and until next time, again.